The Hagmann and Hagmann report for today. It is Wednesday, April 1st. That's right, April Fool's Day. And we're no fools. April 1st, 2015. This is a live broadcast. I'm Doug Hagmann in studio with my son, fellow investigator, researcher Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann report. Just want to thank everyone for tuning in to us tonight. Thank you for deliberately listening to this broadcast, whether you're in your 18-wheeler, your four-wheeler, your two-wheeler, your patrol car, your delivery truck, or you're at your home. I just want to say thanks for tuning in, and wherever you might be, whatever continent, whatever country, whatever state, whatever city, whatever location. Thank you so much for listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report. For new listeners, our home base is HagmannandHagmann.com, of course, and we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. That's 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern time. And we're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network worldwide there. You can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. I want to say hello to Karen in Rome, Italy, and Robert in just outside of a suburb of Rome, Amy in Jerusalem, listening live at this early hour. Several other people in France and throughout Europe. Welcome to the program tonight. We've got this will be of special interest to you tonight. We've got a very special guest tonight, Mr. Doc Marquis from his website. It's a God Things Production 777.com. If you go to HagmannandHagmann.com on the right-hand side, you'll see his name and a direct link to his website, folks. Go to his website and bookmark his website and check it, because I got to tell you, he's got some absolutely stunning information, DVDs, DVD streaming, just his information with respect to the Illuminati. I would say that his stuff is second to none. He's second to none, and he's just a fantastic source of information. He's coming up here just momentarily. Before we get started, I'm just proud to say this: that portions of tonight's broadcast is sponsored by Nature Box. Now, Nature Box ships, you know this, they ship great tasting, very tasty, and guilt-free snacks right to your door. They've got over 100 flavors to choose from. You can choose from Asiago and cheddar, cheese crisp, pistachio power clusters. Oh, are they so good? Big Island pineapple. And you know what? You'll never get bored of snacking again. It's not the same old snacks. No siree. Try NatureBox for free by going to naturebox.com/CFP radio. That's naturebox.com/CFP radio. Again, so proud to have them with us on board. And they're great snacks, great people, great company, and we're proud of them. More later on that. Joe, welcome to the studio.
Glad to be here. It's going to be an exciting show tonight. We have our guest, Mr. Doc Marquis, with us. We had the pleasure of meeting him again at this year's Orlando's Prophecy and the News Summit. It was a fantastic conference, and we had a lot of fun. Didn't get to spend too much time with Doc, not as much as we'd like to, but we got to interact a little bit, and it's always a pleasure. And it's always a pleasure to see what he's working on and talk with him and getting into the mind of somebody who's been on both sides of this journey in life, was born into a family which was not of the Lord, and now has turned his knowledge and his experience and dedicated himself to the Lord, and is exposing all the evil agendas that he sees in today's world. With that, welcome, Doc, back to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Thank you, Joe. How are you and your father doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Just trying to make sense of everything. You know, Doc, the longer I live, the more I realize that how screwed up things are. I mean, really screwed up things are. You know, it's just, and there's, I'm not going to bore anybody with details, but, boy, I'll tell you, you know, who messed us up? I want names, man. I want names. Anyway.
Well, but one big name we could use, let's face it, that would be the Illuminati.
Exactly. You know, Yeah. But I'll tell you, you know what, folks? Doc Marquis was just a tremendous draw to the Prophecy and News Conference in Orlando, Florida. He did such a fantastic job at the presentations, and I got to tell you something. His DVDs are just absolutely incredible. If you don't have any of his DVDs, man, you know, if you're looking for something for your library, and I suggest that everyone needs the backdrop of his DVDs, especially. And I mean, the Dictators of the Illuminati, riveting, absolutely information-packed. And this is not a sales pitch. You know, you want to get educated, you want to know what's going on behind the scenes. Hey, with respect to the Illuminati, Doc Marquis, Dictators of the Illuminati. And it's just fantastic. So anyway, Doc, sorry to take up so much of your time. I don't want to sound like it's a sales pitch or anything, but I'll tell you what, it's man, it's great. So,
well, let's face it, you two were so busy at the Prophecy in the News Prophecy Summit this year. I mean, I don't know how you two managed to film all those interviews that's going to be on the DVDs, you know, once they're all, you know, put together by Prophecy in the News. How you two manage to survive doing that at a breakneck speed for 3 days, I don't know how.
Well, you know what, Doc? We missed a few, okay, and those were the people that touched down and left, you know, had no time, and but I'll tell you what, it was fun, and we did a presentation and a roundtable. So in addition to the interviews, but you were a great interview. I'll tell you, folks, Doc shared a lot of great information during that interview. That well, you'll have to get the DVDs to see it. So. And
you were doing interviews for God TV as well, weren't you, Doc?
Yes. As a matter of fact, that was with Paul McGuire. He had asked me if I would do a couple of shows for him for God TV. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a new TV series or not, but Paul was busy interviewing people nonstop, and as you pointed out, I was able to do 2 shows for Paul myself while I was there.
That's great, man. Yeah, we all kind of, I mean, you, Paul, Joe, and I felt like zombies. Well, that's a wrong word to use, but, you know, we were pretty fried after, you know, sitting in front of those lights.
Those bright lights.
Oh, my goodness. I could still, what a nightmare that was. But you know what, the information that you had provided and others, just tremendous. And I would do it all over again in a heartbeat, because it was so honored to be there, and among people like yourself. It was great. So, but you know what, Doc? We got so much to. So what in the world is going on, man? I mean, the world's not falling apart. It's orchestrated chaos in the Middle East. We've got Iran that, well, apparently they're calling the shots over there to the United States. You got Obama. That's a shill of the Arabs, well, of the Illuminati, I suspect. And then domestically in the economy, I mean, pick a headline. I'm dizzy.
I know. I haven't seen the Illuminati this busy in quite a while. And when it comes to, as you were saying, with Obama and Iran, what's going on? Well, he's stalling. Simply put, he is stalling so that Iran has as much time as it can to gain as much ground, geographical ground as it can. Mm-hmm. Because the pressure is on them from the rest of the world to cease, or at least bring down to a bare minimum, their nuclear program. And let's face it, whenever any new country or old country, whatever you want to call it, has suddenly has nuclear capability, that makes everyone pause and consider. Because let's face it, anyone with that type of weapon could wipe out a country, and that's what has everyone at these Iran meetings concerned. Because let's face it, if Iran ever gets the nuclear bomb, well, the first target, Israel, is in serious trouble. Because let's face it, the Ayatollah has constantly stated how they want to wipe Israel off the face of the map, how they want to make sure that every single person who's Jewish is completely and irrevocably dead. They have said so many things, politically speaking, one way or the other, about the total and, irretrievable destruction of Israel, that it's no wonder Netanyahu is concerned. I mean, this man was so concerned about the survival of his own people that he broke with the usual protocols of Washington, D.C., and instead of meeting with Barack Obama, he met with Congress. And yet, Barack Obama is just having a hissy fit. He's acting like a little 2-year-old spoiled brat on the playground because, protocol wasn't observed here. No, that was an excuse, and a sad excuse of that. Everyone knows by now, and if they don't, they need to wake up, that Obama does not like Netanyahu, and he has little, if no regard for Israel, period. Because as far as I'm concerned, and I don't care if the government's listening or not, as far as I'm concerned, Barack Obama is not the self-proclaimed Christian he states he is. Everything, and I mean everything, in his background from the last 6 years of his presidency, and to everything I put into that new DVD, Dictators of the Illuminati, he is, as far as I'm concerned, a Muslim. I
Amen.
can't see it any other way when we look at all the evidence. And the last piece of evidence that I found very interesting, January was a month of Ramadan. During the month of Ramadan, men are not supposed to wear their wedding rings. And what's interesting, very interesting, during that same month in January, Barack Obama's wedding ring supposedly got broken and it was sent out for repairs. Now, do you buy that one?
How convenient is that? Yeah, I buy that. I buy that just as much as I buy that Obama is a Christian. I buy that look, you know what? The White House could issue a statement that it's snowing out in Siberia, and I'd have to check the weather to make sure it's true. I don't believe it. I don't believe a thing.
No, you're right. And what's interesting is I just posted up on the website not even 10 minutes ago. It's under the religious news section where Obama, at a church meeting, actually called himself a god.
Really?
It's on the Joe, during the commercial break when you get the chance, look under the religious news section. I think it was only 2 minutes and 14 seconds long, but it was just posted under the religious news section, and I think the caption read, "Obama proclaims himself to be a god."
Yeah. Okay.
It had been. Yeah. Yep. It was removed from YouTube. Every time it was put back up, it's been removed. But fortunately, someone was able to get a copy of it and forward it to me, and I made sure it's put up on my website so everyone can see it.
Fantastic. Okay, yeah. I'm going to have to. It's the top, folks. It's the top story. If you go to Hagmann.com on the right-hand side, click on Doc Marquis' name, and that'll take you to his website. They click on religious news on the left, and the top story, and there you have it. He speaks very craftily indeed. It's interesting how you put his words are virtually unheard by the untrained ear. It's wow. Okay.
Well, you have to watch it carefully because instead of saying "God bless you," he says "I, God bless you."
Oh.
He uses the personal pronoun "I," as in "I am God, bless you."
Wow. Okay, that's very subtle.
I just heard that. Just took a listen. And I don't know if it's a slip up on his part, but he did say, I God bless you. But he was saying in the context that he wishes to be used by God as a tool. But then he goes on to say, I God bless you.
Yeah, he's a tool, all right. Wow.
Interesting the way he phrased that. I God bless you.
Yeah. Even if it's a slip of the tongue, you combine that with all of his other slips, my Muslim faith, pause, God bless you. Yeah, in the totality of evidence, if you look at his continuing course of conduct, it does suggest to me that there's something going on here. Indeed. Wow.
Well, Joe. I mean, Doug. That's why I put Dictators of the Illuminati together. I wanted everyone to finally understand what this guy is really all about and what he's been doing. Because you and I both know he's nothing but a puppet of the Illuminati, and all the evidence is in the DVD, especially the way he, just like the Illuminati, want to destroy Israel. And those plans for the utter destruction of Israel have been in the Illuminati since the 1870s, when Giuseppe Mazzini, who was the second head of the Order of the Illuminati, was corresponding with General Albert Pike, who was the head of all Masonry in the southern jurisdiction. They devised a three-part plan in which they determined that after the end of 3 world wars, the Illuminati would emerge as the rulers of us all. And in that third part, it opens up by stating that they're going to get the Islamic nations to create a war against Israel. And because of treaties throughout the world that Israel has, others throughout the world are going to get involved in this. And, of course, there's going to be those people in the Saudi Arabian world who are going to side with the Islamics. So, folks, if the plans of the Illuminati are as accurate as they were with World War I and World War II, eventually we're going to see an all-out war between the Islamic terrorists against the Islamic State. Against Israel, excuse me.
Okay, yeah, because one thing I've noticed, Doc, is the mainstream Illuminati-controlled media is attempting, in large part, to create this theater that this is a Sunni versus a Shia battle, largely in the Middle East, when in fact, it's really not. It's much bigger than that. It's controlled. The Illuminati controls both sides, and it's not just the Sunni versus a Shia. You've got actually the ideological conflict there is what do you say? The ideologies are perhaps coming more together for the sake of the battle than ever before. However, you've got this thrust against the West, I shouldn't say that. The West is actually, or seems to be, controlling both sides. And by West, I'm talking about the rogue element of the CIA via the State Department, and also the UK and France and other Germany and other so-called Western nations.
And unfortunately, most people, maybe it's just me, maybe because they don't want to know, maybe because they're too afraid to know, but they don't want to acknowledge that anything is going on. And, when we look around the globe, just as you pointed out, Doug, so much is going on. And, just with, Obama himself, have you noticed lately, Obama is not referring to ISIS as ISIS anymore. He's calling them ISIL.
That's right. And he's done that for a while. From what I could tell, he kind of went back and forth, but ISIL has been his mainstay when he refers to them.
Yeah, why, Doc? What's up with that?
Well, you see, ISIL stands for Islamic State and Levant. Now, if you were to take a look at a regular map around, let's say between the Gaza Strip and Turkey, and shortly before, the Gaza Strip would be Egypt, okay? Well, you see, that entire area, according to Islamic belief, is known as the Levant. And they call it the Levant, and they want to especially get one place in that entire region that is not part of the Levant per se. The only one place in that area is Israel. And if they get rid of Israel, that entire area now becomes the total of the Levant of the Islamic nation. In other words, all of that is now also part of Islam. But to one place that's standing up to where they haven't got control is Israel. So when Obama refers to ISIL, he is actually saying he wants the Islamic State and Levant to be created. That's why he's dragging his heels when it comes to Israel, because as I said before, you get rid of Israel, the whole of it is now 100% the Levant, which is under the Islamic world.
Well, that's not going to happen, though, Doc, isn't it? I mean, that biblically that cannot happen, can it?
No, it can't. You're absolutely right, because when we go to the book of Revelation and certain other prophetical books in the Bible, we find out that Israel is not going to be brought down. Israel is going to stay Israel until they are betrayed during the midpoint of the tribulation, when the Antichrist sets himself up as God, and at that point, the Israelites will realize this is not the Messiah they've been waiting for, and that they've been betrayed, because that 7-year peace accord that they signed will no longer be valid, and they will be hunted down.
Okay.
And God's prophecy tells them to flee to the mountains. There is only, and I mean only, one mountainous area in that entire region that a person could flee to on foot and make it within a day or two, and that's the old area known as Petra, where the lost city of Petra resides to this very day.
Okay.
That is the only place where you could make it on foot a day to 2 days on foot, where you wouldn't have to bring food or water. You could make it there. You could make it there within that time frame.
Okay. Well, all right. That answers that question. Well, what about the players here? I mean, and by the way, folks, Doc does a great job in Dictators of the Illuminati, really dissecting the leaders, past and present, and especially Obama on the DVD series. So please, if you're interested at all in educating yourself about this very subject, that would be the DVD to get. Although all of them leading up to, all of them in the series are just tremendous in terms of what a wealth of information. Now, go ahead.
In breaking down in Dictators of the Illuminati, we've been seeing a lot of the news about Putin in Russia, and hearing a lot of from people saying that he's good. He's trying to instill Christian values in Russia. He's the last fighter against this new world order. What are your thoughts on Putin and the role he plays in this grand scheme of world affairs?
If Putin's a Christian, then I'm the next king of England.
You
gonna invite us to your coronation?
Oh, of course. I'll make sure Putin's there with us.
Yeah, exactly.
The Bible identifies Russia as ancient Gog. Gog, according to the Bible, hates Israel and will eventually march upon it to seek its utter destruction. But we also know the prophecy tells us that Gog and Magog, whom we identify as China, if they and they will do it, march against Israel, God will personally intervene and destroy them. No one touches Israel without his divine permission. And this is why we see Putin trying to take over, help me here, what's that area he's been trying
Ukraine?
To take over now?
Ukraine?
I'm sorry?
Ukraine?
Ukraine, right. You see, the Ukraine is a major key spot for Russia. If you recall, in that DVD, 13 Dictators of the Illuminati,
right,
it was not the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand that propelled all the nations of the world into World War I. No, it was something more sinister, something that the Illuminati wanted absolute control. In order to do so, they destroyed the entire regime of Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. You no longer had any more czars. That form of monarchy was completely destroyed by the Illuminati, because in Russia is an area known as Baku. And in Baku is what's known as the Baku Noble Oil Fields. Now, at that point, the Baku Noble Oil Fields held half of the world's known oil reserves. I mean, absolute half of it. And the Illuminati was going to gain control over that no matter what. And they did it through a series of their puppets, Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. Now, when we look at the way they ran their governments and everything, when we compare it to the way the Illuminati operates, it lined up perfectly. I mean, they were following the 7-part plan of the order of the Illuminati towards the creation of a new world order. All that being said for this, if they could take the Ukraine, well, then they've got an absolute chokehold of where the oil will be flowing through Europe. Europe is terrified that Russia will gain control over the Ukraine, because it's the pipelines that bring the oil through the Ukraine that flows through Europe. Now, if you choke off the oil that is sent down by Saudi Arabia, well, then Europe is all but decimated, because there's no more oil. So you can see why they're lining things up. Because if they can't take over Europe, per se, through the radical Islams and various European nations right now, they can do it through the oil. Now, let's face it. Look at what happened recently in France, when that editor was murdered, along with I think a dozen other people, by the Islamics who charged the editor's office and just started wantonly murdering everyone. Right now in England, my goodness, there's actually areas in England right now, especially around London and certain other spots, that are no-go zones for any English people, because the Islamics have taken it over, and if anyone tries to get into that part of the neighborhood, they will beat them, stone them, and even kill them.
But Doc, but the mainstream media says that's just conspiracy nonsense. Look, but you and I and the audience knows better, because here in the United States, we have places where, and I'm going to be perfectly blunt with people. Look, just imagine this. You've got places where a white person wouldn't dare go at night. And I'm sure there are places where a black person wouldn't go at night as well. It's so to think, for example, that it's not real where these no-go zones are, is to be either naive or complicit in the official narrative that the Illuminati media is pushing. So you're absolutely right.
Well, as I said, if we go to their plans, there's absolute no doubt that what's going on in the Islamic world, Israel, and throughout most of Europe, it's already been laid out, well thought out, plotted, planned, and it's happening. And as you all know, throughout the series, especially, well, let me think, that was DVD 3 called Frontmen of the Illuminati.
Yep.
What most people don't realize is that once the Club of Rome, before the Club of Rome was created, the Illuminati, and I put into that particular DVD, I wanted everyone to see the proof for themselves. The original map that the Illuminati had created, in which the world would be divided up into 9 different regions. However, after they created another one of their frontmen, which was the Club of Rome, the Club of Rome took that map and decided it would be a lot more efficient if they divided the world into 10 regions. And it's been 10 regions ever since. And it's interesting that if we look at Revelation chapter 13, verse 1, it tells us that during the tribulation period, the world is going to be divided into 10 kingdoms or 10 regions, just as the Illuminati had created.
It's amazing. And you do, in that DVD, folks, the front men of the Illuminati, you do identify who the real movers and shakers of the Illuminati are. You identify the organizations, and you know the organizations. It's interesting. There are 6 front groups that you've identified: the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and you know we hear about these organizations, but folks, listen carefully to what Doc's saying here. Then you've got the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR. The extensive ownership and control over the news media that they've got. The anchors are told which stories to feature and what to say. You know, people can't see the hand up their behinds, you know, to make their mouths move. You know, but Doc, I'm not in a good mood today. But anyway, you know, then you got the United Nations, the Bilderbergers Secret Society, the Club of Rome, which you just mentioned, conceived the plan to divide the world into the 10 kingdoms. Again, which you just mentioned, which does fulfill the key prophecy, the Trilateral Commission, which, of course, Zygmunt Brzezinski and his darling daughter Mika from CNBC, Morning Joe, I got a dead intern in my office. Oh, I'm sorry. And, you know.
The United Nations.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, you know, you really get into this and identify these people. I guess you probably haven't been. You probably don't subscribe to CFR or Foreign Affairs magazine. Never mind.
No, but I do look at it every now and then to see what they're up to.
They haven't given you a comp subscription, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, if they ever saw my name, I have a feeling they wouldn't accept me.
But no, so you're laying this out. Wow. Okay, so, but who's on top at this point? You know, in this day and age. I mean, I'm not even sure I know what. There's so much here. I'm not even sure what questions to ask you first. You know, with where we're at.
The head person on the Illuminati right now, I mean, the absolute number one who's running it would be Evelyn de Rothschild. Evelyn, he's the eldest son, and since he is the eldest son, Evelyn automatically stepped into the leadership position once his younger brother passed away.
Okay.
I should say his other brother, yeah. And it's through the Illuminati. You know, I had a very interesting talk with someone the other day who was trying to tell me that it's the Jesuits and the Pope that's in charge. Well, the Illuminati, the Pope and the Vatican there may have billions of dollars, and I don't think anyone could argue the point that they have literally billions of dollars. But the fact of the matter is, and even their own accountants can't bring it down to a fine point, but the Rothschild family right now, they're worth somewhere in between $300 to $500 trillion. Trillion with a T. Yeah, folks, guess what? Guess who's really in charge? Because the thing is, the truth of the matter is, the Illuminati infiltrated the Vatican back in the 50s, even before they were recognized as a Vatican state, which didn't come about till the Lateran Treaty that was brokered by Benito Mussolini and the Pope. Only then did the Vatican become the Vatican City, per se. You know, that how many acres of land is it? It's not that much. It's the smallest country on the earth. But they are not the ones pulling the strings. No. Once the Illuminati infiltrated the Vatican, they took it over in the 1850s. And there's a man there who's identified as the Black Pope. Now, he's not called the Black Pope because he's supposed to be the Jesuit general or because of his skin color. No. It's because he's always kept in the shadows. Every day, that man receives his orders from the Pope, and that man delivers them to the Pope himself. I should say the Illuminati passes the order to him, he passes the orders to the Pope, and the Pope takes his orders.
So, okay, just so we're understanding this right, the current Pope, the Jesuit Pope, is not the Black Pope. The Black Pope is the person in the shadows who passes,
exactly.
who's a middleman. Okay.
The one that no one knows about.
All right.
That's how it's done.
Okay. Wow. All right.
And interesting, isn't it interesting how this particular Pope? Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Doug, but if memory serves me correctly, December 21st, 2012, if you and Joe and everyone else will remember, we were supposed to have another one of those doom and gloom scenarios, correct?
The Mayan calendar, taking a powder, right?
Either planet Nibiru was supposed to come by and destroy us, or the Mayan prophecies stated we were going to be, blown up, or, if we look at the prophecies of Brother Malachi. Now, he stated that the 111th Pope would be the final Pope because the next one, which was supposed to be Pope 112, he was supposed to be identified as Petrus Romanus, or Peter the Roman from the Latin. And if we go by the prophecy, according to Brother Malachi, Pope 112 would end up as the false prophet. Now, wasn't that supposed to have been Pope Benedict XVI? Wasn't he Pope 112, if I remember?
Yes. I believe so. Yes. I want to make sure my facts are right. Yeah.
So we are now up to the first Pope in history that's called Francis. So he's called Francis I, who, according to my recollection, that would make him Pope 113. And he couldn't be the coming Antichrist. And even if he was, something's going on because even this one has made tenors to that he might consider resigning his position.
Right.
So how could he be the Antichrist then?
But
the false prophet.
Correct. He's intimated that his reign will be short. I think more precise. He's made recent statements that he believes his reign as Pope or at the Vatican or as the papacy will be short. That's of course Francis, and Benedict XVI before him took leave back in 2013.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Interesting. So where does this leave us with Pope Francis, the current Pope, who seems to be, kind of a globalist, if you will?
Well, it's interesting how when we look at the popes, ever since Pope John Paul II, they have become so interested in go out in the world, and their mission, solely speaking, is to unite all the world's religion into a one world religious order. Now, isn't that part of the Illuminati's plan, and isn't that also what was prophesied in the book of Revelation would happen?
Yes, as a matter of fact. Exactly.
So you see, going with what we started with at the very top of the hour, people need to start becoming aware of what's going on, because these things, they don't just have a global effect. These things are also found in the Bible, and these things which God put in His Word 2,000 years ago was put there so you people would be aware of what's going on.
Exactly. It's all in the Bible, folks. It really is. And the Bible serves not just as an instruction manual, inspiration manual as well, but a guide to the current and future events that are taking place. My goodness, written compiled over 2,000 years ago. I mean, it's incredible how this is shaken out here. Okay, and you know what, Doc? I like that about you because your research and folks, let me just be clear on this because Doc has some great research and he does the litmus test against like the Book of Revelation, Daniel, and others. So he compares his research and findings to what the Bible says, and it's very important for people to understand that. So okay, man. All right, so.
So what else is going on? Let's think. Well, Obama, as we already pointed out, he doesn't like Israel or Netanyahu. He doesn't.
Well,
he may say whatever he wants to say, and I could care less because I'm not interested in the words. I'm interested in the actions. Your actions will tell me more about you than anything else. And Obama has come up with more excuses for not being there for Israel, and especially, let's look at that action he took when he sent $350,000 to that one organization that was located, that's located here in America, that would be used to defeat Netanyahu in the elections. Now, What does that tell me? That tells me Obama wanted Netanyahu out. He himself is caught on tape, on a hot mic. A hot mic, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what that is, that's a media term. That means someone's mic, his microphone is still on. Someone either forgot to turn it off or what have you. But even Obama has been caught on a hot mic when he was talking to the Russians saying that once he'd enter into his second election, he'd be able to change things the way he wanted them to.
Right.
And let's face it, one of the things he's been doing is trying to get Netanyahu out because he's the one person, the one political figure that is standing up to, the usurper of the White House and saying, I will not allow two states in my area. That's not going to happen. Israel is one state, and it, controls, all that area, including the Golan Heights and such. And as far as I see it, the Bible clearly points out that that entire area belongs to Israel. And if God says that's theirs, I'm not arguing the point. It is theirs, no matter what Obama wants to say.
Right. They've got the historical claim to the land, and it's interesting. We can go through it, how Israel is mentioned in the Bible, and it's not meant, or Jerusalem, for example, is mentioned in the Bible, not the Quran. It's interesting. But let me ask you about the 386-page report that was leaked or publicized by this renegade-in-chief, Obama, in early February. Actually, we found out about it, late February, early March, about Israel's nuclear capabilities and research. It was published in 1987. But what I found interesting, and perhaps you might have a thought on this, here we have a report that's dated, it's 28 years old, basically, and it's released now. But 386 pages, if you do the numerology on that reduces down to a 17. Yeah, something about this.
Well, actually, it reduces down to 8, which is the number for new beginnings.
Okay. All right.
The question is, what new beginning? And that's when you have to take a look at that report, when it was released, so on and so forth, because if I recall, wasn't that supposed to have been an accident, one of those slip-ups, if I remember correctly?
No, I you know what, Doc? I think this was deliberate and it was malicious. I don't think anyone claimed it was accidental.
Well, then it definitely had to have been Obama, because that's exactly how he is. Remember, if he doesn't get his way, he's going to act like a petulant child. Let's look at the last time Oh, they closed the government down. Now, the one thing he did, as always, was, it's not my fault. Of course, nothing is the guy's fault. But he's the one that started closing down key areas so that it would hurt the people the most. It would really get to them. And yet, of course, Obama was saying, well, I had to do this to save money because Congress made me do it because they created a sequester situation. So here we have another situation where Obama is acting once again like that petulant little child, and he's going to extract his vengeance. And
right.
he, let that report go. And as I said before, he's dragging his feet so that ISIS, I don't care if he calls them ISIL or not, so that ISIS can gain as much territory as they can before they're forced to back off.
Wow. Okay. Well, you mentioned ISIS. I got to ask you this. In addition to the meaning of ISIL or the reference that ISIL connotes or denotes or whatever, ISIS, of course, it does suggest to me anyway, the goddess Isis and Osiris and Horus and all that. I mean,
right.
Isn't there some significance there with respect to Isis and the terms used?
Well, yeah, because in that region of the world, let's face it, 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, approximately, when the Egyptian nation came into existence. Two of the major deities is Osiris, the sun god, and his consort, his wife, Isis. Isis was, among other things, the goddess of the occult, the goddess of magic. It was through her power that when Set cut up his brother Osiris into 12 pieces, he scattered them throughout the world. But it was because of her power, Isis, her occult power, that she was able to bring Osiris back by mummifying all the pieces together and gave him life again through the process of reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
And well, you see, this fits in perfectly with the belief system of the Illuminati because throughout history, we start with Babylon and work the entire occult belief system of Babylon. You can take it through Egypt, through Persia, through Mesopotamia, through India, through other parts of Asia, to where it eventually came into Europe, specifically through the Druids. And it's the Illuminati who claim their entire descendancy and belief system directly from the Druids themselves. So, in other words, when they do that, they claim that the Babylonian system of the occult is still being used in the order of the Illuminati, including all the beliefs and practices, which, if we study them, let's face it, includes human sacrifice, summoning demons, having very specific occult holidays, so on and so forth. So you would expect to see that such a controlled group under the order of the Illuminati would have to have some sort of mark, something that the Illuminati will use to say it is us. Just like if you remember on the back of the dollar bill, those two seals of the dollar bill, you know as well as I do, Doug and Joe, especially since you went through the Arrival of the Antichrist DVD 1, that those are the two seals of the Order of the Illuminati, and we could prove it, among other things, because they mark their territory. When we look at the Rockefeller Center, there's a particular building there. I can't think of it off the top of my head. You look all the way to the very top of it, in glowing red numbers that are 10 feet in height, as I recall, is 666. You look at, as you said before, Isis. The name itself applies to the goddess of magic, the god and the goddess in the occult world. Look at what happened at the Boston Marathon race. What was the address where the bombs went off, where the racers were supposed to cross that track? What was the address again?
I don't recall specifically.
666 Boylston Street. 666.
Okay.
And if you remember, in DVD 12, False Flag Over Boston, my goodness, wasn't there enough evidence in that to prove that the Boston Marathon race was not just one of those things? This was a controlled event by the Illuminati to determine a specific outcome. And I don't care what anyone tries to tell me, because I've got the before picture of Jeff Bauman. If you remember, that guy in the wheelchair that's become all but the poster child for the Boston Marathon race bombing.
Yep.
I've got the, if you remember, and I put it in the DVD, I put in the before photos that show Jeff Bauman didn't have legs at that race to begin with.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You know what? That's right. You did that.
We showed, if you remember, step by step, the actual footage that you can take frame by frame and show when the bombs were going off, he already had no legs. And when we look at the photo of Jeff Bauman in the wheelchair, immediately, and you know my medical background, immediately I spotted 6 medical reasons, 6 of them immediately, why that photo could not have possibly happened, not in the way they're stating it, because among other things, if Jeff Bauman lost both his legs, well, that means 4 major arteries were severed. You have the exterior femoral artery, and one for each side of the legs, and the other 2 for a total of 4. So when you look at the photo, why wasn't blood gushing all over the place? And don't try to tell me there was tourniquets, because if you look at his legs, there aren't any tourniquets there. But if you look at the bottom of the wheelchair itself, you'll see 2 tourniquets just sitting there doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And if he really was that critically injured during, the Boston Marathon explosion, look under the wheelchair, look behind the wheelchair, look to the right and left of it. There's not a drop of blood on the ground.
You're right. And you know what, Doc, and people know this, listeners know this, I'm a blood spatter pattern analyst, okay? So I've been trained in the forensic discipline of that. Let me tell you something, okay? Even with a peripheral cauterization of the wound, let's say, you would still have, as you mentioned, 4 arterial breaches there at a minimum, realistically, 4 arterial breaches. So you would have, and the human body holds roughly, 5 liters of blood, and by volume, you would have such blood loss. It would be, there would be death by exsanguination. Like right.
Exactly. You see, in the first minute, the very first minute, 60 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, with 4 arteries severed like that, half of his blood would have already been out. Now, unless he had received immediately within that second minute, literally pints and pints of blood, he would die before the second minute was over. And yet, when we look at that photo where supposedly this guy, just had his legs blown off, his skin color is the exact same skin color as those people who are helping him. Now, when you have 50% blood loss, you're as white as a ghost. And if you look at the photo, this guy was completely cognitive. He wasn't in shock. He wasn't in a state of trauma. He was completely cognizant.
But boy,
and the skin color was absolutely normal.
So, but has anyone determined, was he a crisis actor? Was he really Jeff Bauman? Who is this guy? There's been no follow-up, right?
No, but if you notice, I had already found a number of crisis actors that was at Boston, and I put them in that DVD. What's interesting is I am finding more crisis actors now. That was at the Boston Marathon race bombing. And, of course, all of them, they're all in my files now. So whenever anything else happens again like that, I'm going to take them out, and I'm going to start seeing which crisis actors have been popping up there. Because a number of the same people who was at the Sandy Hook disaster, they showed up at the Boston Marathon race bombing.
Right.
And what are they doing there? What were they doing there?
And Doc, we've been so trained not to believe things like this, not to believe our own eyes. It's amazing how we've been how we readily accept the narrative over the visual documentation that you provide and others provide, or is provided to us. It's just crazy how we just we don't ask questions, and we've been programmed and trained.
Well, that's the problem. We've been conditioned to just go along with what mainstream media is telling us. And you know as well as I do that the Illuminati have taken control of our media ever since the late 30s. There was, I believe it was a little bit more than 200 major newspapers then. And it was discovered that if the Illuminati could control, I think it was 25 particular newspapers, they could control the entire media of America.
Yep.
And so what they did, and going along with what you just stated earlier, when they bought up those major newspapers, they had the editors and most of the ready-made staff there fired. They put in their own editors and told them exactly what they would and would not allow in print, and that they would follow whatever discourse the Illuminati told them they would. And it's been going on like that ever since. And it's the same thing with most of the television news stations. Very few can you get anything honest out of. And
Doc, did you happen to see? Let me ask you this, because I'm trying to find this clip, and I'm sure one of the listeners can send this to me. There was a late night talk show host. I want to say Jon Stewart, maybe not. Maybe it was. Anyway, a talk show host. When like a Johnny Carson type or Jay Leno type. I'm dating myself now. Anyway, he played a series, like a montage of news stations all across the country, television news reports all across the country. And from, we'll say, Miami, Florida to Portland, Oregon, to Portland, Maine, to San Diego, California, and every place in between. And this lasted for like 3 minutes. They reported in the exact same words the same story at the same time. And these are independent, localized local stations, television stations. And it was one of the most chilling things. And people were laughing, but to me it was one of the most chilling things I've ever seen. I don't know whether you caught that or not, but it was crazy. So they're all reading from the same script.
Well, I was about to say, I remember the show you're talking about, and quite honestly, I don't recall who it was, but you're absolutely right. It proved once and for all, ladies and gentlemen, that if we look at the nightly news, compare the dissertation from every single one of them, you're finding out that their stories aren't changing. I mean, it literally is as if someone handed them a script and told them, smile, look pretty, and read.
Exactly. Precisely. And, look, folks, I understand when in journalism, the AP wires or the wire services, they'll issue a news story. It'll come over the wire, hence the phrase. But generally speaking, the news station, if it's not relevant to the area, geographically specific, or, generally speaking, there was editorial control over the content and how it was used, how it was worded, and so on. Okay. This was not the case. This was blatant programming, and boy, I'll find that clip, Doc, and I'm going to put it up because it's just so amazing. Or I'll point to it, or link to it. But man, it's just so amazing. And you're right. I mean, Wow. Hey, you know what? We're at the top of the hour, Doc. I'll tell you what. We're going to take a break for a few minutes. Give you a chance to hydrate there a little bit. We're going to come back, and you're on fire tonight. I got to tell you, man. And folks, we're talking our very special guest tonight, Mr. Doc Marquis. Doc Marquis is a friend of the program. He's a hard worker. I got to tell you, when I saw the Doc at 5:30 in the morning outside of the hotel or inside of the hotel getting coffee at 5:30 in the morning now. Okay, no, everyone else is asleep, and here's Doc. You know he's a hard worker. So anyway, folks, you're listening to a very special edition, the first day of April, and the significance by itself, 2015. I'm Doug Hagmann with Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann Hagmann Report. Again,
number 2, this first day of April, this Wednesday, April 1st, 2015, our guest is Mr. Doc Marquis. His website, It's a God Thing Production, 777.com. You can find his website on HagmannandHagmann.com, or in the show description, right there under the title, you can get a link to his website. Doc, I want to open up this hour with a question. In the book of Ecclesiastes, in chapter 1, it talks about the things that have been and which shall be, that which is done and that which shall be done. There is no new thing under the sun. It goes on to say, is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new, it hath been already of old time, which was before us. Then, or there is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of the things that are to come, with those that shall come after. And I wanted to ask you, from your personal knowledge, we see the internet today, we see the ability, from projecting images off of a TV screen through radio waves to now the internet bandwidth, the pretty much the ability to project any type of illusion to our human perception. This thing we call the internet, this connectivity tool, is this of old? Is this of the old times? Is this something that you were...
Well, people aren't... Well, let's put it to this way. People can't see what God is saying there because most people don't take a look at the very nature of God himself. You see, that particular verse, let's remember, this Solomon wrote it under the divine inspiration of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit said, put this down, and Solomon did. Okay? With me so far?
Yep.
Okay. Bruno for a second. When we look at God, we have to consider certain things. He's not just, when people think of God, they think of God who's absolutely everywhere at the same time. And that's true. That's being omnipresent. But we are talking God here, people. It doesn't end with him being everywhere, in every spot possible, all at once in the here and now. No. God is everywhere at the same time in the past and the future. God exists throughout infinity, which is why when he put down the verse, there was nothing new under the sun. There wasn't anything new for God because he's everywhere in every time at the same time in the here and now, and he's already seen because he exists in it, the past, the present, and future. So there is nothing new for God. He's already seen it all because he's in the past, the present, and the future, witnessing it all.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
This is not just a God of the here and now. This is a God of the past, present, and future who's existing in all of that at the same time.
When you say at the same time, I mean time is perhaps
outside of the.
The measurement of time is a creation of man, right? I mean,
God created time because he knew as third-dimensional creatures we'd need a measurement or a unit to go by so we could govern our lives. And if we study man himself, well, man basically has three sections to his life every day. He has his work day. He has, which is generally 8 hours. He uses another 8 hours to sleep, and the other 8 hours usually is devoted to family or downtime or what have you.
Okay.
But we needed measurements to go by. So among other things, when he created the sun and the moon, we would and everything else, the seasonal markers, we would know when it was the right time to plant our crops, when was the correct season to harvest our crops, when to put out the animals, the livestock, when to bring them in, so on and so forth. He realized that his creation would need something to mark and govern our lives with. That's why time was created. But since God is infinite, time is nothing to him. In fact, remember, according to him, 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as 1 day, because time is not relative to God.
That's correct, and that's correct. And there's, I read that the example of this, the 1,000 year as a day example, would be the 930 years Adam lived. It's associated with a different scripture as well, but I guess I'm kind of wandering off the beaten path here. Rather than get into that, I won't. But okay, so yeah, we've got an omnipresent God that exists well outside the confines of dimensions. So wow, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we have to remember that verse has greater implications, because when it's talking about past, present, and future, it's also talking about the existence of God being everywhere, but in every time. That's why nothing is new to God.
Would that also apply to Satan, Lucifer, the fallen angel, or angels, plural?
No, because
okay.
you see, Satan, just like the other fallen angels, they were fourth-dimensional creatures that had third-dimensional abilities. So time would be able to be measured by them, in, shall we say, a human sense of the understanding of time. But they are not omnipresent. Not one of them is omnipresent in the here and now, let alone in all of time. God is the only one who's omnipresent, not just in the here and now, but also in the past, the present, and the future, all at the same time.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I was trying to kind of paint this mental picture. Satan is, and the fallen ones are constrained within that framework, and of course God is the only omnipresent. I gotcha. Okay. All right. I just didn't want to go off on something that, or go down a road that I wasn't sure of. All right. Well, okay. I needed to ask you this, Doc, and we're kind of doing this in not necessarily in any order here. I thought of you when in fact I was talking to Joe before the program started, when the Germanwings flight 4U-9525 crashed, allegedly, at the hands of the co-pilot into the Alps, and that was on March 24th, 3 days after the spring equinox. When, of course, March 24th, number 9, it reduces to co-pilot on the job for 18 months. It's another significant number. 630 hours of experience of flying in Airbus 320, another 9, and so on and so forth. I mean, it just continues. What did you make of that in relation to the Illuminati? Do you believe what?
Well, I'm still looking into it myself, because I haven't got enough information as it sits right now to make any valid determination. I'm still looking for other information. The one thing I'd be very interested in learning is if they find, the black box.
Right.
Because the black box, ladies and gentlemen, is the recorders of the air flight itself, and they're called the black box, but they're really painted red. So in case the plane goes down, the red box can be found without any problem. And isn't it very interesting when we say that the plane, the supposed plane, that hit the Pentagon, there was never a red box found, was there?
I don't think there was anything found, actually. I mean, anything of substance found.
Nothing, because among other things, a number of my friends who work for the media, certain reporters, they told me, and this is what they were telling me, they said, Doc, there's no plane debris around. None. And yet, you and I both know, when we look at the Illuminati playing cards, that the Pentagon and the Twin Towers were supposed to be coming down, and they had. And now I've got the footage that will show from a camera no one was looking for that shows a Scud missile hitting the Pentagon.
I'm coming over to your place. I got to see that footage.
It will amaze you. I am not kidding. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever. When you look at it, again, frame for frame, I was in the military, folks. I still remember, certain things, and even though, I may be getting a little up there in my age, I haven't quite reached my dotage yet. I still know what a Scud missile looks like. And that thing, you can see it, frame by frame, going, just about hits the wall, and the next frame you see the explosion.
Yeah, the Feds only released a limited number of frames from one camera angle and said, "Hey, we're done," and classified the rest. So you were able to. Yeah,
but it's interesting. I think I know the one you're talking about. Yet I saw an explosion, but you didn't see anything before it.
No, not at all.
No, and so if you see an explosion and you don't see anything before the film, then you're left to wonder what hit it. And how could you miss something that was supposed to be as big as, I think it was supposed to be a 747 that hit it?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you miss something that big on film?
Yeah, even if it's flying at arguably at 400 miles an hour, which I don't believe it could have, given the gymnastics it did beforehand. So, yeah, it's hard to miss. And I'll just say hello to my sister-in-law who's listening to this program tonight. And it's interesting because she said to me last weekend, Doc, and I told her, I said, you got to listen to the program tonight, meeting tonight, to Doc Marquis, knowing that you would bring this up and other things up, because she said, and we had never talked about this before. In fact, folks, if you want to know, I mean, she was like the epitome of, or is the epitome of, someone who really doesn't pay attention. And she, on Sunday, her and I talked, and she said, a plane didn't hit the Pentagon, and it was this revelatory, all of a sudden my eyes are open kind of thing, and she was the last person I'd ever think that would actually say that. And the reason I'm mentioning that to you, Doc, number one, she's listening, and hello, but number two is more and more people are starting to wake up, the people that have not paid attention before, and they're starting to wake up, and it's because of people like you and hopefully us, that we can propel the information and get these people to wake up and know that they've been lied to. But
that's why, Doug, I always tell people, shows such as yours are not just critical, they're vital nowadays. I mean, it's the one form, the one source we still have left that we can put the truth and the whole truth out there. And I know you folks pay a heavy price for that. Let me explain something, ladies and gentlemen, here. Back when I was growing up, it seemed we used to measure a person by the quality of the character of their nature. This is how we could determine, whether a person was a good person or a person you just stay away from. Well, nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that the more a person tells the truth, the more they're going to be jumped on by everyone. I mean, truth, granted, has never been popular. It never has been, never will be. I mean, look at what they did to the source of all truth. They crucified him. And yet, right now, vicariously speaking, I see Doug and Joe being vicariously crucified because there are people out there who've got nothing better else to do in this life to follow the mainstream rhetoric and literally tear into anyone who would dare disagree with Obama, the media, or what have you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm usually a very laid-back individual. I try to do what I can, follow the Word of God as best as I can. But when you start attacking people I love and care about, you are ruffling my Christian feathers. And I'm going to put this as nicely as possible. You don't want to do that. You don't want to ruffle my Christian feathers because just because Christians are supposed to be meek doesn't mean we're supposed to be weak. I will stand up. I will bring down the thunder and the lightning of God upon anyone who dares mess with my friends, let alone my family. And I'm talking about my Christian family. I was disowned from my other family ages ago, and I think most of you know that because I left the order of the Illuminati. Right. But you come against or say anything against my friends, my family, you've ruffled my Christian feathers. I tell everyone to just get out of my way because that person's mine now. I will bring down the thunder and lightning of God in a righteous way that person or persons will never, ever forget. And if they think they want to pick on Joe or Doug or someone else, I tell them right now, come after me. You just come after me because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to sing a much different song. And by the time I'm done with you, you're going to end up singing Nearer My God to Thee.
Doc, I got to tell you, you've never been one to shy away from protecting your Christian family and the people within your inner circle. And that's one thing I admire about you because you're you mentioned about character and about truth telling. Isn't it interesting how things have changed? 40 years ago, and I remember this. A man's word was his bond. Integrity was everything. Character, and now it's just the opposite. And it's perverted by social media. It's perverted by the people in every line of life, and it's just it's horrible. It's horrible.
It's terrible. Let me give you a perfect example of what you're saying, Doug. I know a young man, his name is Gavin, and about maybe 6 months ago, he promised me he was going to be at such and such place at such and such time or something like that. Well, he never made it, okay? So when I asked him about it, I said, you said you were going to be here at such and such place at such and such time. I said, what happened? He says, oh, well, I had something else to do. I said, what? I said, you gave me your word you would be here, and you broke it. He says, yeah, but everyone does that.
Everyone
well,
does
let's put
that.
it to you this way. For the last 6 months, he's been on the Doc Marquis training program, according to the scriptures, where if you've given me your word or promise or whatever, you say you're going to do something, you're going to be there, buddy, you're going to start learning how to keep to your word. Because a man's word, as you said, was the law.
That's right. It's just amazing how we have denigrated as a populace, and that's we could talk. There's so many examples of that going on today. Doc, let me ask you about something here. A listener had written earlier today. We had talked about you being on the program yesterday's show, and I got an email early today about from someone who said,
was it a good email or was it an ugly email, considering it was going to be me?
Well, no, actually, it was good. This person, Kevin, actually, is his name, asked me to run this story by you, or this account by you. Kevin was listening on a day that I said, basically, I believe, based on the research I've done, independent of others, but consistent with their research, that German Chancellor Angela Merkel is actually Hitler's daughter. Okay, and so Kevin said, hey, you know what? Before you go too far down that road, you might want to check with Doc Marquis about this. And that was the sum and substance of the email. Okay, so what do you know about Dr. Klauberg, capturing the essence of Hitler and impregnating Eva Braun's sister back in 1950, about 3 or whatever?
Well, it's interesting. According to the story, Eva Braun, Adolf Hitler's cousin / mistress / eventual wife, I think for a day or two at the most, they were both supposed to have committed suicide in the bunker.
Right.
Correct? I mean, that's the mainstream story, right?
That's the story.
Right. But, and this is where it gets interesting, I learned in the Illuminati that had never happened. And I think it was just a year or two. They extracted enough DNA from the bones that remained supposedly of Eva Braun, because they were supposed to have been burnt alive so the enemy couldn't get the bodies, Right. Well, found out that when they examined one, it was definitely female, so you know that Eva Braun, right?
Correct.
The second set, when they examined it, was also female.
Interesting. Never heard that one before.
Okay.
Oh yeah, this is something that just happened in the last year or two. They were able to extract enough DNA from the bones and I think some dentine from the teeth. And there was absolutely no way under a microscope you could mistake female from male. It's virtually impossible. You'd have to be Helen Keller to make that kind of a mistake. And no, the results were female. So the stories that Hitler, along with certain other members of the SS, made it to places like Argentina and such. We know, especially from the Nazi hunters, that a number of those renegade SS troops and other people from the Nazi regime were found in South America. And interesting that there is an area, they just recently found an area in that, I think it was in Argentina, that there was quite a palatial place there at one point that reportedly was where Hitler had hidden. But, well, as it says, right now, as far as I know, the Illuminati stories are true, because when they examined, medically speaking, the remains of those bones, it was female, which means Hitler could have very well have made it to Argentina, and just sequestered himself away. And it's very possible, because there's been a lot of stories I heard, even in the Illuminati, that he had a number of bastard children.
What would be the intent, for example? Let's go with the theory. I suppose it's a theory at this point. Let's go with the possibility that Merkel is the illegitimate offspring of Hitler. What would be the intent? Because she's got no background at all. It's kind of like Obama, But what would be the intent of there?
And the intention is an easy one. As you'll recall, every family, all the old families in the Illuminati, every generation must have one of their children initiated into the Illuminati. This way the bloodlines continue. Now, if Angela Merkel is Hitler's offspring, then it would make perfect sense that they would want to keep one of his children, his line, going on in the order of the Illuminati like all other families are doing to this very day.
All right. Okay. That gives me somewhat...
Because remember, let me just throw this in quickly, because if you remember, when I was a seventh generation Illuminati witch. I wasn't a first. I wasn't the first of my family's line. No, my family line goes all the way back to 1789. So they every generation, as I said, you've got to keep someone in the family that is initiated so the bloodline continues. And by the time I was initiated, I was a seventh generation Illuminati witch. Merkel could be the same thing, except she could be a second or third generation.
Understood. Okay. I got to ask you, Doc, and and you don't have to answer any of these questions, or questions about your past. I mean, seventh generation Illuminati witch. I mean, you had to see some pretty interesting, to put it lightly, pretty significant things.
I've got more dirt on more people than I can think of. I mean, I know times, dates, places, events, things that would, as you said, curl people's hair. Because when I was going through the Illuminati, I wasn't just learning the regular stuff like any other member. I had over 200 years worth of Illuminati history in my family that I was also learning. So I picked up more about the Illuminati than most people alive nowadays, even in the order, because as I pointed out, I was seventh generation. So I've got a lot of history that I learned through my family when I was going through it. And so as I said, I know more names, dates, places, times, events, than even I can remember half the time about what was really going on back then and what's going on now.
If I can ask this question, for those new listeners who have never heard you before, and I know that we've got, I know we have quite a few new listeners listening today that haven't heard you before in our program. What could you give us an example of something that, not necessarily hair curling, but certainly something that people might be surprised, or new listeners might be, might say, "Oh my goodness," based on your knowledge and experience.
Well, let's just go with what we already mentioned. Remember on DV1, and I also showed it on DVD4, when you and I were speaking about the two great seals of the Order of the Illuminati.
Yep.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are new, or maybe those who don't know this, the two great seals of the Order of the Illuminati is found on the back of your $1 bill. If you take out a $1 bill, you'll see on your left-hand side the truncated pyramid, and your right-hand side you'll see an American eagle, which originally was not an eagle to begin with. It was a phoenix bird. I've got all the original plaques and such to prove this. Now, when we go through those two seals, ladies and gentlemen, I can conclusively prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that those are not the two seals of the United States of America. Those are the two seals of the Order of the Illuminati. Among other things, if those were the symbols of Americana, what is an Egyptian pyramid doing on it to begin with? Next, when you look at the original seals, which was accepted by Congress, and the first one used in 1782, and then a new one had to be made in 1841 because the first one had worn out. You look at what they really were; those were phoenix birds. Those weren't eagles. So again, why would we have these Egyptian phoenix birds if those were the seals of the United States of America? Plus, if you remember, Doug and Joe, a six-pointed star with the circle around it is a hexagram. That is the foulest, the most evil of all symbols in the occult world. There's nothing that can touch it. And we know that there's 6 points to it because it's a hexagram. Three of them, which makes a 6 plus 6 plus 6, are on those two seals. Why would they be there if those were the seals of America? Also, the animal totem symbol, the actual symbol, the animal symbol for the Illuminati is the owl. The owl denotes wisdom, hidden knowledge. Why are there 5 of them on the dollar bill if that's supposed to be the seal of America? When the owl comes from Pallas Athena, the Greek goddess of magic, war, and such, and the goddess of wisdom. There is so much on the dollar bill alone. Now, mind you, when I got saved back on April 15th, 1979, I should have known God had something in store for me even back then, because on that very first day, when I was talking to the pastor who led me to salvation, I showed him and no person outside of the order of the Illuminati to that date had ever seen what I revealed to that pastor on that day. We're even talking about the maps of Washington, D.C., how that area is laid out and using a combination of Illuminati and Masonic symbols.
Right.
I was the one who originally came out with all this stuff back in the 70s. No one else knew this stuff. And yet, I've got some people right now who's actually taking the seal, trying to say, actually, it's like this, so that it make it look like they've come up with something new, something unique. Ladies and gentlemen, those people are lying. You go to DVD 1 and DVD 4 in my series, you'll find the truth. But back then, they were just flabbergasted. When I was talking about the New World Order, the Illuminati, the 7-part plan, so on and so forth, these people thought I was a nut job. They were convinced that, okay, the guy's a Christian, let's just, smile, nod, and walk away. And yet, here it is, almost 36 years later.
Yep.
Those people have stopped laughing.
And happy anniversary, by the way, this month for your Christian, or for being saved. It had to be a very, oh my goodness, knowing what I know about you, Doc, and that time had to be just what a stressful time. Stressful doesn't even begin to cover it, but.
Let me tell you. I'm going to tell you. I don't know if I've ever told you this or not. But during the first year of my Christian life, I was this far away from giving it up as a bad idea.
Really?
I am not kidding. I had, at least in my mind, what I thought Christians were supposed to be like, because I had heard about them in the Illuminati. I was never exposed to them until the last 3 years, when God kept putting them in my path to where they would constantly witness to me nonstop. And that's what did it. It took 3 years of Christians witnessing to me, but I finally understood what I was doing in light of what the Christians were saying all along. And it was on April 15th, 1979, that I walked into a Christian church and I got saved. And I knew the day I did that was the day I left the Illuminati. I couldn't even go back and get any of my possessions. I knew what I did. I knew the ramifications. I knew the payment that would be extracted. I was disowned by my family on the spot. I mean, I've got nephews and nieces that are in their 30s. I've never seen them. I never will be allowed to. But that first year, as I said, I had, excuse me, my images, my thoughts of what Christians were supposed to be like. Well, let's put it to you this way. I was in for a very, very rude awakening. Now, I don't think I have to tell you or Joe about Halloween, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, we understand the origins
and I think our listeners do as well. So I don't think
Right. So remember, God tells us we're not supposed to have anything to do with Satan or anything of his. And yet, 6 months later, now a lot happened before that 6 months later part, the in-between. 6 months later, I walked into my Christian church, and they're holding a Halloween party fully dressed as witches, warlocks, demons, monsters, what have you. I am standing there thinking to myself, did I just leave one occult religion to join another?
Yeah.
I was literally gobsmacked. I didn't know what to say or do. I'm just looking. And so much of what I thought Christianity was supposed to be was thrown out the window, right then and there. And that's when I started thinking to myself, did I just make a mistake?
Well, you know what, Doc, that speaks to what they're teaching. They're teaching that the touchy-feely, prosperity, everything's good, versus the real scripture. Or am I wrong? Is coming from the pulpit?
Well, they don't want truth. They want, as you said, fuzzy-wuzzy. The fuzzy-wuzzy Bible, the make-me-feel-good Bible, the prosperity movement. Give me anything that's going to make me feel good. Just don't give me the truth.
That's right.
And another thing that plagues me to no end is that they're making sure that the prophecies aren't being taught anymore. I had I've spoken to a number of pastors about this, and one, it was just a couple of months ago, when they're telling me in seminary they're not teaching the prophecies anymore, and so I'm asking this one particular pastor. I says, well, if they're not teaching the prophecies, what's our hope for a better future? And he goes, there is none. And I'm going, that's the problem. Because, among other things, when we look at these 100-plus perversions of the Holy Bible, the one thing I note, especially in, what is it called, the NIV, what I call the New Illuminati version, they purposely remove the name of Christ as many times as they can and salvation. Now, if you take away Christ and salvation, then no one can get saved through the scriptures, can they?
Not at all. And you're exactly right. We see this. And you know what, Doc? We see this with the New King James Version as well, where, the changes are subtle in some cases and pretty plain and overt in others. But, you've got, we can go through that. But, yeah, you're exactly right. So they're removing from the translations of the Bible or the versions the ability to get saved from the Word of God.
Well, I was just going over, as a matter of fact, Genesis, I think it was, that's chapter 12, verse 3, the Abrahamic covenant, where it says, God said to Abraham, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee, and in thee shall all nations of the earth be blessed. Well, in the King James Version, the new one, it doesn't say, and all nations shall be blessed. It says, and all families shall be blessed. Excuse me. That's not what the original translation rendered. It said all nations would be blessed.
That's right. Yes, in the Hebrew. Yep.
Exactly.
I believe it was the Hebrew. Yep. Mm-hmm. Man, that's wow.
Yeah, and so we see these well, you know why we've covered this before, why all these perversions were created. But the point behind this is that you remove the name of Christ and salvation from the Bible as many times as you can, and you remove the hope that anyone can get saved. And if you're not teaching the prophecies, then you've removed the hope for a better tomorrow, especially in the kingdom of God.
Well, yeah, the changing of the words, changing of the meaning of the words, changing of, all of this. Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah, but think about this. It works perfectly towards the order of the Illuminati, doesn't it? If you put these people in a state of hopelessness, well, then when this Antichrist figure suddenly pops out of nowhere and starts to promise you everything and all that, well, then you're going to follow him because this guy is promising you a better tomorrow. And it's going to be great. You're going to be happy. You're going to get all this stuff. So you're going to look at this guy as, wow, I'm going to follow this guy because he can give me a better tomorrow. He can give me hope for the future. I'm going to go with this guy. Now, isn't that interesting that that same sort of rhetoric was used when Obama was trying to run and usurp the White House? Wasn't his message called Hope for Change, I think it was, or something like that?
Hope and Change, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. The same old story I've heard time and time and time again from more dictators in the past than I know what to do with.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and again, this is for really the new listeners, Obama is perhaps one of the most overt
dictators of the Illuminati? Yes.
Right, yeah.
I'll say it for what it is. I don't care who's listening. Because I am so sick and tired of people being scared of the government. The government needs to start being afraid of us. Because we're the ones that they answer to. It's not the other way around. And I don't care what they have to say about it.
Well, very good. And you know, your folks, Doc is never timid. And if you didn't make it to the Prophecy Conference, the Prophecy Summit, the DVDs, I'll tell you, you've got to. I highly recommend them. Doc's DVDs, Prophecy in the News Summit, if for nothing else, just for Doc's presentation, because it's just fantastic. But you mentioned that your first DVD, and if I'm not mistaken, it was the Arrival of the Antichrist. I think it was your first one, right, or the first one in the series?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
All right. We've got so many questions today, and there are so many. I don't know so many speakers that come out and say, well, the Antichrist is going to be this person, or looks to be that person, or looks to be from this bloodline, or whatever. But you do a great job in your series, and it's kind of like threaded throughout your DVDs. Give us a little insight on the Antichrist. Give us a little insight on the Antichrist.
Well, the writing of the, it's interesting. I'm gonna, I'm working on a project right now, a very special project that I'm not gonna tell anyone about right now. You and Doug know. You and Joe know. But
right.
I'm keeping this under the lid for now.
Okay.
But with what I'm doing right now, among other things, I will be covering this particular topic because you see, when we go to the actual writings of the Illuminati, now they do not refer to this coming New World Order, one global dictator, as the Antichrist. That's a Christian term.
Right.
They refer to him in their own writings as the king of the despots. A despotic, a wicked, and evil person. This is going to be wicked beyond wicked. This person is going to make Adolf Hitler look like Shirley Temple in comparison. And in the writings, they refer that this king of the despot, whom they're preparing for the world right now, and that's an exact quote, that among other things, he's going to sweep away any nation who opposes him. He's going to destroy anyone who would dare speak out against him. And we find it's interesting, again, when we look at the prophecies in the Bible, this is exactly what it says is going to happen. And this, I can't help go back to what we were talking about before, how God isn't just omnipresent in the present. He's omnipresent at the same time in the past, the present, and the future. He's everywhere and every time.
Right.
So this is why, among other things, it's very interesting, folks. Got a lot of people have asked me, Well, are the Illuminati? Do they know what God's plans are, and are they preparing for them? And I tell them, no, it's the other way around. God already knew what the Illuminati were going to do, and He's planned all the counter moves down the road. Not only that, but if you look through the prophecies, ladies and gentlemen, He also told us what to look for. And when we look for these things and compare them to the actual writings of the Illuminati, well, ladies and gentlemen, this may be the Illuminati's idea, but God already knows it and has already planned all the counter moves. And again, if we do what they're doing in the seminaries and not teaching on the prophecies, then what hope do we have for a better tomorrow?
Well, yeah, obviously rhetorical question in nature. We're not. I mean, they're removing that hope from us within not just within the church, but within the very people behind the pulpits. I mean, the pastors, the ministers, the priests, whatever. I mean, it's being ripped out from the teaching and the doctrine, and it's scary.
Exactly. And I'm old school. I believe you read the whole Bible, and that includes the prophecies. The prophecies in Revelation, Daniel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Joel, even part of Jude. It's throughout the entire Bible if you folks will just pick it up and read it. Now, Here's an old trick I teach everyone, because so many people think, I have to go through the Bible in a month or I'm not Christian. No. If on the weekdays, Monday through Friday, you read 3 chapters a day, just 3 chapters, and then on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, read 5 chapters, in 1 year, you would read the Bible from cover to cover. That's it. 3 chapters, Monday through Friday, 5 chapters on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. 1 year, you've just read the entire Bible. Now, I don't think that's too much to ask.
You know, if we all, as listeners, if we all do this, I mean, we should be doing this anyway. That's very easy to do. I mean, very simple to do. Sometimes with your schedules, it's not that easy, but you can make time for it.
And Doc taught me a good lesson about the level of attention we pay while reading the Bible, making sure we understand each word, each sentence before moving on to the next, because we tend to. Like books, unlike books, the Bible was not to be read at a rapid pace, to get through it. We are to read it to understand and to hear what is being said to us from the Holy Spirit and the living Word. But instead, people read it to get through it. People read it to back up an argument or a preconceived notion that they have. And if one were to read it with an open heart and looking for only truth, then that's what would be received while reading it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Well, Doc, let me ask you this, because sticking with the Arrival of the Antichrist DVD here, and you provide insight into the coming Masonic Christ, and the King of the Despots, as you put it. I'm just going to ask you, basic questions. However, whatever, because people have this. It seems like people have the same questions. Is the Antichrist alive today? The person of the Antichrist, is that person physically embodied alive today?
When I was in the Order of the Illuminati, there was at one point, I think I was 12 or 13 at the time, but it was at that point in my life that I heard that the King of the Despots had been born.
Okay. All right. So that'd be about 20 years ago.
So that means he'd be somewhere around 40 or his early 40s or something like that.
All right. According to the Illuminati, does this person have to have all of the bloodlines. There's so much about bloodlines with the Illuminati, and I was reading it and had read a book called The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea. I'm not sure. I'm sure you're familiar with that book.
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, that points to a member of the royal family, specifically as being the Antichrist, or a good possibility, because that person fulfills all of the bloodlines from the time of Christ.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
No. I mean, if we were to try to mingle all of the bloodlines as they're espousing, well, guess what? You'd come up with more hemophiliac people than what we know what to do with. I mean, think about this. Hemophilia at one time was actually called the royal disease because it never happened until royal families started intermingling to keep their bloodlines going. But if you do that, you weaken the cellular structure of the blood itself, and so you end up eventually with a person known as a person that has hemophilia. I mean, look at the son of Tsar Nicholas II. His son was a hemophilia. Was hemophilia because of all the intermingling of the family bloodline. Now, that's just one line we're talking about. I mean,
okay.
Could you imagine the damage you would cause if you just kept, to 13 particular bloodlines, trying to keep them just in one line?
Well, yeah, you get a point there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Medically speaking, that's not going to work. But what we do know, according to the scriptures, is whoever this Antichrist figure is going to be, he's going to be a male Jewish virgin who's going to refuse to worship the God of his fathers, which would have been the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. According to the scriptures. And we also know that whoever this Antichrist figure is, he's going to have seemingly an overnight meteoric rise in the political realm. And again, seemingly, he's going to have all the answers to all the problems. And so the world is going to hold hands together around the giant campfire and sing Kumbaya, my Lord, to this new Antichrist person. This is the person that they're going to start following. Because, as I said before, he's going to seemingly have all the answers to all the problems.
Well, we've got the litany of problems today, but go ahead.
And, well, as I said, right now, the writings of the Illuminati, and according to what I've learned in the Illuminati, they're preparing him right now.
All right. Right now. So as we see events unfold in the Middle East and domestically here, and we see the dollar about to collapse, or, when I say about to collapse, I don't know if it's 2 months, 2 years, 2 weeks, or whatever. But we know it can't last, which is going to really change our lifestyles. It's not going to be the end of the world, but certainly the end of the lifestyles as we know it. So all of these things happening together, the rapid nature of the events, certainly provide fertile ground for a person that you described to come in and say, "Hey, I got the answers. I got it. I'll handle it." Would you associate that person with the United Nations or some other global organization?
I wouldn't necessarily associate this person with any particular organization, because what it looks like, according to the scriptures, is that this Antichrist person is going to come somewhere out of the 10 common market European nations. It looks like that's where he's going to be coming from.
All right.
In any case, one thing that will definitely mark him as the Antichrist is that he is of Jewish stock, but he's not a practicing Jew. That's like being a Rothschild. They're Jewish by lineage, but they're anything but worshiping God. They're worshiping Lucifer.
Exactly. And we must make that distinction with the rise of anti-Semitism and all this bunk about the Israel, Netanyahu being a war criminal and so on. I mean, Oh my goodness. So
That's
we've got to make
just
that
adding
thing.
insult to injury.
Exactly.
Let's face it.
Exactly. Yep.
With that, we're up against the top of the hour break. Let's take this commercial break right now. We'll come back on the other side with our third and final hour on this April 1st edition with Doc Marquis. His website, It's a God Things Production. It's a God Thing Productions 777.com. It's a God Thing Productions 777.com. As my father said, bookmark that site. There's so much new content, video, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour on this Wednesday, April 1st edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report, April 1st, 2015. Doc Marquis is our guest, and we've had him for 2 hours, and it's been a fast-paced, content-rich 2 hours. And, Doc, I'm going to turn it over to you in this third hour. Take us where you want to go. Anything that's on your mind that you want to talk about, or anything that you've seen and that you really feel we need to hit on. Let's get into that.
Well, let me answer that by telling you what a lot of people have been asking me about. Is Hillary Rodham Clinton going to become the next president?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, folks. What possibly are her qualifications? And as that one lady, I can't remember who said it, flying around in an airplane is, how did she put it? Hold on. Is a recreational thing, not an accomplishment. You know, I mean, as Secretary of State, I mean, folks, to the words, what point at this time does it matter? You know, well, yeah, I mean the Benghazi debacle.
Right.
What major bill or major achievement did she make when she was a senator?
That's a good point.
I mean, I keep coming up with nothing. I mean, I can't think of one major achievement or one major accomplishment she's ever made. So when we look at the question for what it is, you know, is she going to become president? I mean, how could she be? She has no qualifications. But then again, neither did Barack, so you never know.
Well, yeah, and wasn't that decided, Doc, at the Bilderberger conference in Chantilly, Virginia, when Hillary went in and presented her side to those in attendance, and Obama went in? They both had ditched the press in the summer of 2008 before the.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Doug. That's, you know, when it would have been decided. It's the same thing with things like this will always be determined at one of the Illuminati's territories. You know, in this case, the Bilderbergers, one of the 6 major organizations, the front organizations of the Order of the Illuminati. When Richard Milhouse Nixon was running for president, he was actually at one point going to have to go up against Ronald Reagan. But what had happened, both of them had met at the Bohemian Grove, you know, what I call the summer camp for the Illuminati.
Right.
And they took a walk, you know, on one of the paths in the woods. And they found a bench to sit down, and they talked it over. And Reagan basically told Nixon that he would not compete against a fellow boho. A boho is a member of the Bohemian Grove, and Nixon and him agreed that if Nixon made it to the primaries and such, they would go with Ronald Reagan's plan. And so Nixon did win the primary, and so Ronald Reagan politely bowed out as he said he would.
Now, did the Illuminati okay, let me ask you this. With Nixon's presidency, the second term, did the Illuminati take him out? Because
they let him have it because he started trying to do things his way instead of their way. The same thing happened, if you remember, with Adolf Hitler. Hitler was trying to portray his masters because he wanted to take what they were doing in Germany as far as the Third Reich and bring it up to an even larger scale. And in order to do this, he was secretly brokering a deal with that would have been King Edward VIII of England. You see, at the time, if you remember, Edward VIII was greatly feared by Parliament because they knew the guy was, at his nature, a true fascist. And the problem was you just can't get rid of the king like that. I mean, he's the king. I mean, it's not as if you can say, well, you're no longer king. It doesn't work like that in England. So what they did... oh, no. There would have been an insurrection like no one's business.
Okay.
So eventually what they did, they put Edward in a corner where it was a no-win situation because they knew he wanted to marry Wallis Simpson and make her the Queen of England. And if you remember, Wallis Simpson was that twice-divorced American. It's bad enough. It was bad enough back then if a person was divorced once, but twice was worse than worse. And, you know, the Church of England or the C of E does not recognize divorce. So they basically told him, if you want the throne, you're going to have to give up Wallis Simpson. If you want Wallis Simpson, you're going to have to give up the throne. And that's the truth of what was going on. The story is that he gave up the throne because he couldn't live without Wallis Simpson. No, the truth of the matter is he was backed in that corner by Parliament and by the Church of England because he was siding secretly with Adolf Hitler and had things gone as had planned. Hitler promised that Edward VIII could take the throne of England back, and as a bonus, he could put Wallis Simpson in as the Queen of England. And he was so in love and infatuated by her that he couldn't deny her anything. And so that suited his need. However, the Illuminati found out about his plans, and they took care of the situation as always.
Mm-hmm. And you're not going to find this in any documentary you might get on the History Channel or whatever. You're looking at inside information here. So King Edward VIII was in fact a Hitler.
He was a
comrade. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He had even visited Hitler a number of times in Germany. I've got the photos to document him being greeted by Hitler at Berchtesgaden himself.
Wow. All right. And this, okay, obviously, we should point this out here. The royal family, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, I mean, that's the Saxe-Coburn. I mean, they changed their name from Saxe-Coburn, right? Or what was their name?
Yeah. It was Saxe-Coburg during World War I when it first began, but to separate themselves from their German cousins, they changed their last name from Saxe-Coburg to Windsor, after Windsor Castle.
There you go. Okay, that's right. And it seems like a trivial thing, and people might say, well, who cares? But it was devious in its intent, I believe, to separate themselves from the German, the fascist.
Well, they had to because they were related to them, and politically speaking, that looked anything but good. So they changed the name. And how they became related in such a manner was because of Her Majesty Queen Victoria. Now, Queen Victoria, she had ruled the British monarchy for a little bit more than 67 years. I mean, she was the longest reigning monarch in all of English history. And because of that, she married off a number of her sons, her daughters, her nieces, and nephews to other monarchs throughout Europe. At one point, if I remember correctly, of all the monarchies in Europe, 28 of them, those who sat on the throne, were directly related to Queen Victoria. So she made sure that Europe would remain under the control of England, because all the relatives were from the Queen of England, Queen Victoria. And that's how and why the Illuminati purposely decided to create a world war as dictated by Giuseppe Mazzini and Albert Pike, to start a war with Germany going against England to break the chokehold that they had over Europe, which was preventing the Illuminati from taking Europe. So they created this war, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, if you compared him to, let me think, that would have been either it would have been King George V. If you look and compare George V to Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, my goodness, you'd swear that they were brothers. Sometimes, if I'm not looking carefully enough, I get them mixed up. They look, almost like identical twins.
Mm.
Yeah. And so they had to break up all these monarchies, among other things. So Russia came down, the German monarchical system was coming down. So many parts of Europe had been split and destroyed, literally, because of the Illuminati. They got what they wanted. They wanted the Baku oil fields. But pitting one European country against Russia and against certain others, they were able to break the stronghold Queen Victoria had over Europe, and from there, it was easy pickings for them.
And all of this historical background, it really brings us to where we are today. I mean, every single aspect, whether it's Hitler or Nixon, whether it's King Edward VIII, I mean, all of this brings us to all of this mosaic of events and people. Well, bring us right to today, and you've done a great job. And I just want to really plug this again, folks. Doc Marquis' DVD series is quite the education. Not something you'll find in an Ivy League school, I'll tell you that, but certainly more valuable than an education in history from an Ivy League school. This is the truth, and so it's critical. It's critical. If you want the inside scoop on the Illuminati, your DVD series is the series to get. And you also offer live streaming on your website too, or not live streaming, but
streaming.
Streaming.
Regular streaming. Yeah.
Right. So you make it available, accessible, affordable, and it's kind of cool the way you do it. So, all right. So where we're at today here, what do we need to be concerned about or be looking at? We've been trying to make sense of everything, the Illuminati cards and everything. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I'm telling everyone we need to do is keep our eye on Israel. I don't care what anyone else has to say on this topic, but Israel and the people were chosen by God. If you notice the last 2,000 years, and it always will be, everything always seems to center around or eventually come back to Israel. I mean, we are talking about a very tiny place that literally is surrounded by at least 8 to 10 different enemies.
Yeah.
There is not, if you were to draw a circle around Israel and look in any direction, you're going to find an enemy who wants to destroy them. And yet, God's providence will not allow it to happen. He promised that they would remain always. But the prophecies, we're seeing the pre-signs of the prophecies coming about. And as you put it, history is beginning to spiral. And it's going to pick up very, very soon, ladies and gentlemen. Watch the prophecies. Look for what God was telling us was going to happen. Keep your eyes towards Israel. Now, back to the presidential elections. I don't see Hillary Clinton having a chance, simply because the Illuminati, for the most part, is still an old boys club. They don't mind. What? There's almost as many female members as there are male people in the order of the Illuminati. But because it's still basically an old boys club, they will not have the hand over the reins of power of America to a female. I mean, why do you think the Bohemian Grove is still all male? They're not going to have any females, so it's an old boys club. So I've got to wait till I see all the possible candidates. It's still way too early for anyone to know who's going to run, who isn't. But once I start looking at all the people and everything else, who's there and such. And another thing, it's not going to be Jeb Bush either. Just knock him off the field, people. He isn't worth it. Trust me, it's not going to happen with him. Because among other things, Bush and Clinton both represent old administrations that the people are just too sick and tired of. So it's not going to be Bush, let alone Clinton, simply because not only hasn't she done anything of notoriety, but she's just a miserable person. Look at how much of an elitist she is, and the people are picking up on this now, especially, as I said, with her refusing to give over the emails. Not only did she refuse to give over the emails, now she says everything on the server has been destroyed. I've got news for people. She may think that they're destroyed, but nothing technically really is destroyed unless the hard drive has been destroyed, because the information is still there. It's just that under normal circumstances it can't be retrieved. But it is still there. So if you get the right person to know what he's doing, he can retrieve those tens of thousands of emails that's sitting there.
No, you're absolutely right. Everything is, even if you think you wipe out a hard drive, there's also, along with the computer chips, magnetic strips and chips that store that information. Anything from when the computer's first, built and turned on, that has been inputted until wherever it is now. You can wipe out the hard drive, but that information is still encoded on magnetic computer strips that are inside the computer. Doc, do you see in this upcoming election the possibility for the Illuminati agenda to pull people back into this right-left paradigm by offering them some sort of, we'll say, humanitarian people person out of left field, trying to bring back the people's dedication to this two-party system?
Well, you see, without knowing all the names right now, okay, it looks to me like they're going to pull someone from the Tea Party mentality, or from the Tea Party itself. The people have been waking up. Let's be honest. I mean, you and I, God be praised, are still long enough, Doug, to where we see a change beginning to happen. Now, whether or not the Illuminati is going to just dangle this in front of the people for a certain period of time, I don't know yet. But one thing I do know is that it looks to me that they're going to pull someone from the Tea Party, someone, one of the younger people, someone who has a different message, someone who wants to bring America back to what America was and should be. That's what's going to resonate more than anything else in people's minds, because among other things, that means we're going to be brought back to our economic strength. That also means we're going to be brought back as the number one nation in the world that people will fear instead of, want to spit at, that means we're going to be bringing back our military strength in such a way that anyone who dares oppose us can be brought down. That also means that America itself is going to be on the road to complete recovery, and by that I mean they're going to get rid of certain things like Obamacare. I see that being one of the big agendas that whoever's going to win has to promise to get rid of. That is the one thing that if a person wants to win, they're going to have to promise. Because, let's face it, Obamacare, it's a train wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going down faster than the Titanic, for goodness sakes. And we have to remember that the person who says that they're going to get rid of us, they're also going to be looked upon as they're going to save us from Obamacare. It's not that he's going to just get rid of it. He's going to save us from it, because Obama promised you can keep your doctor, you can keep your health plan, and we're going to put an extra $2,500 in your pocket because the premiums are going to be lower.
Right.
Yeah. And so whoever is going to stand up against Obamacare is going to be, I guarantee you, one of the front runners.
But
you can't just, because among other things,
will they allow this
Obama,
to happen?
What's that?
Will they allow this to happen, the Illuminati? Will they allow this resurgence of constitutionality?
They want it to happen.
Why? I thought they wanted to take down America.
Oh, they
ultimately.
will. But right now is not the time. You see, what's been going on with Obama is another one of their experiments. Think of this. Think of what Obama's been doing. He's been pushing us to the brink, hasn't he?
Yep.
And the people, this is the measurement. It's the people. How much can we push the people to the brink before they're willing to riot?
Okay.
Let's create, another revolution. And that's what the Illuminati doesn't want to happen. But they've got to see how far they can push us before we snap. They've gotten dangerously close, but that's what they need to know. And that's what they've been doing through Obama. Obama is just, as I said before, he's just a puppet.
Right.
And he's dancing to the tune of the Pied Piper. And because of that, he's been doing a lot of things that to you and me, or to any normal person, it doesn't make sense. But you and I both know he's up to something.
Right.
Everything that's been going on in the Middle East has just been a smokescreen. It's to keep us distracted from what is really going on behind the scenes. And this is what the Illuminati has been doing. They've been pushing us and pushing us and pushing us for the last 6 years to try to figure out where is our breaking point. And let's look at what's going on right now. Operation Jade. That's coming up soon, isn't it?
Yep.
Jade Helm, 15, yeah.
Yeah, Jade Helm, exactly. Now is the time to implement, now is the time to pretend as if, they're doing some sort of martial law exercise. Because in the way people are right now, knowing that we've been pushed to the brink, how are we going to react now, since we're so close to the brink, to a possible martial law event in 10 or 11 states? How are the people going to react? This is what they're measuring. It's the same measurement, if you remember, that they use to determine the outcome for the Boston Marathon race bombing. Remember?
Okay. All right. Yep.
It's the same thing. It's a measurement. Once they've got this down, I guarantee you, they're going to let us ride for about, let me see, this is what, 2015. They're going to let us ride for about the next 4, maybe 6, 8 years at the most. But then after that, things are going to really begin to spiral, and not in our favor and not in the favor of the rest of the world. That's when you really going to have to keep your eyes and ears open. Because their plans, if you remember, and I've told you this before, according to the plans of the Illuminati, according to their own timetables now, somewhere between the years 2028 to 2030 is when, according to the timetable, they'll have everything in their back pockets. At that point, it's up to them when they want to jump.
Plan will be complete by that time. So,
yes,
okay.
Everything will be under their control. There's only one nation left that does not have a Rothschild-controlled banking system. To the best of my knowledge, there's only one. And if you remember, I gave you the list of 7 that was still around after the Boston Marathon race bombing, because that's what it was all about, was the financial control. It wasn't about, a jihadist thing. No. This was something much bigger than that. And the last place I know of, and excuse me, it was on my list of those 7 I told everyone
yes.
To keep an eye out for, and that would have been Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Iran.
And where we see things happening right now. Go ahead.
Exactly. You see, the last 3 places was Cuba, North Korea, and Iran. Now, when all this began at 9/11, the 7 places that did not have a Rothschild-controlled banking system was Iraq, Iran, North Korea, Libya, Sudan, Cuba, and Afghanistan. Now, I warned the people about that. I gave them strict warning, and I said, what you've got to watch out for now is that certain countries are going to start being attacked, or they're going to start doing a lot of saber rattling, because the Rothschilds was going to have their way no matter what. And so it wasn't even 2 years later. Iraq suddenly had a Rothschild banking system, and Afghanistan had a Rothschild-controlled banking system. Why? Because those were the 2 nations we originally blamed for all of this to begin with.
That's right.
Right. So in 2003, you had Sudan, Libya, Cuba, North Korea, and Iran left. I warned everyone, look towards North Korea. That's where you're going to see so much saber rattling, and once you see it, that means the Rothschild are beginning to make their move. And I also warned them about Libya. I said, that's going to have to be brought down quick. And sure enough, Muammar Gaddafi, well, he's gone, isn't he?
Yeah, and his son is in exile, or captive exile, I suppose.
Yeah, and by the time, 10, 11 years later, we have Cuba, North Korea, and Iran. Cuba, now isn't it interesting? First let's go back to North Korea for a second. Well, North Korea has suddenly settled down, and they settled down because they knew they better cooperate with the Rothschilds, or they'd be, in more trouble than they realized. And they now have a Rothschild banking system. Cuba, well, isn't it a major coincidence that, we've opened up diplomatic relationship. We want to hold hands and sing around the campfire with Cuba suddenly?
Yep, normalized relations. Yep.
Yeah, and we haven't done that since, Fidel Castro took over.
That's right.
So that leaves just one place. And where is all the trouble happening now? Iran.
That's right. That doesn't bode
It's
well.
all happening. Yeah, it's all happening according to the Illuminati plans.
It's amazing when people step back and take a look at the big picture, and I'm a big picture kind of guy. Look at what's, I mean, it's all laid out. The plans are all in front of us, and Doc does a great job in the teachings, the hours upon hours upon hours of teachings. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. You can learn a lot more than you think that you would need to know. But I'll tell you something. It adds context to current events. It's and you called so many of these events. Wow. Okay. In the remaining time we have left, Doc, I just are we going to strike a deal? Do you think with Iran? I mean, it certainly looks like we've caved all the concessions, or at least it appears that way. That you know we've Kerry and company. They certainly look weak, and one more day, and you know we're going to have a deal, kind of thing. Looks like we're going to end up with a deal. Is that your gut, or is that what your research is telling you?
Well, everything tells me. By the way, we used to do things in the Illuminati, and I remember all the teachings, how we were taught to do what, and it looks like they are going to come up with a deal. I'd say no later than a week from today. But, and this is where it's going to get interesting. We're going to be told only certain aspects of this deal. I guarantee you, it's only going to be certain aspects, because among other things, well, Barack Obama is so interested in leaving behind his stupid legacy. He's got to come up with some sort of win, no matter what it's going to cost us. And so, they're going to John Kerry and the others. They're going to come up with something, but I guarantee you, we're going to come out on the short end of all this, and that's exactly what they want.
Well,
you see,
yeah, that fits right with the Mazzini-Pike Third World War scenario. That's going to Islam versus the rest of the world, basically.
That's what it'll eventually come down to. The Islamic nations will march up against Israel, and because everyone has a treaty with everyone else, well, there are going to be factions that are going to be made because of these treaties. Well, anyways, so what's going to happen? We are going to end up with the short end of a stick here. And this fits in with what the Illuminati is planning for the next presidential election, because this next person is going to undo a lot of what Obama has done, because Obama has been doing it through executive fiat. He has not been doing it through any congressional orders or anything. So long as it's not done through the Congress, anything Obama does, even, I don't care if it's an executive order or not, it can be undone by the next president. So
right.
This is going to work in favor of those candidates who's running, because they will promise, among other things, we will undo the executive order or whatever damage Obama has done.
Okay.
This is going to be the tune. Listen to what they're going to tell you. We're going to undo Obamacare. We're going to undo X amount of executive orders that he's done. We're going to repeal whatever this executive order says. This is what you want to listen for. Whoever is chirping that tune, that's going to be a person who's going to end up in the front running pack, whoever's going to be, running for president. This is what you're looking for this time around. Mark my words, ladies and gentlemen. This is what you want to look for.
Doc, we've got so many people who are writing to us and have written to us saying, and we got this with Bush last time, but with Obama it seems more realistic, and I believe with every successive administration, although I would not call this an administration, regime perhaps is a better word, but people are saying, well, maybe Obama is going to stay. Maybe that one of the executive orders is to extend his term because of some horrific event.
No, No, that can't be done. They would have to repeal the amendment that allows only for a two-term president. You see, the only reason that amendment was needed was because of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. When Roosevelt was the president, and as you remember, through towards the Great Depression and through World War II, he stayed in office mainly because he was promising to fix things, and in a way he began to, or at least it seemed to, while doing other things behind our backs, like selling us out. But I won't go there for now. That's another history lesson. But because of this, he not only stayed a third term, he also began his fourth term.
Yep.
And once he died, it was only after he passed away that Congress decided to create the amendment that allowed for only 2 terms of a president.
Right. Well,
so he would have to repeal. No, Congress, would have to repeal that amendment to allow Obama to become the next president. And do you really think Congress is in the mood to put up with him for a third term?
No, and the other side of that too is, I don't think it almost seems like George Carlin used to say, it's a big party and you're not in it, and other things about, both sides are bought, seem like they're bought and paid for. So what, to coin Hillary's phrase, what difference does it make? It almost appears to me that everything is rigged anyway. So why stoke up the people by doing something unconstitutional or supra-constitutional when you own the next person in that chair anyway, or control them?
Because it keeps the people busy and distracted.
Right. Okay.
That's why. All
right.
If you keep people busy enough and distracted enough, they're not looking for the truth. They're only following what you want them to follow. That's why, again, shows like yours are so critical, because the people will get the truth and not distractions.
Well, we appreciate that vote of confidence. Okay. We have to see through the fog and the mire and the muck and all the misinformation, as I like to call it, and disinformation, to see what's really taking place. Anything in the near term that we should look for? I mean, Jade Helm's coming in July of this year. We've got just pick anything. Iran, we've talked about the deals there, the Israel situation. These are not distractions. I take it. These are things that we should keep our eyes on, right?
Well, what I think is going to happen once this deal is made with Iran, which I would say would be over in a week. Well, things are slowly going to settle down for a while, but once next year begins, get ready for a fury of a political storm. I mean, if you thought the storm over Netanyahu was something, wait till you see what's going to happen here in America for the presidency.
Ooh.
It's going to be nasty. And quite honest, if Hillary Clinton is so stupid to actually become a runner, they're going to have a field day on her. We are talking, she's already a social pariah.
That's true.
What's going to happen? They're going to break out the piranhas next and let her have it, because she's open territory at that point.
What about Bill, though? Bill's position in that Illuminist structure that seems to be the spark plug, if you will, behind Hillary, or maybe was Hillary the brains all along and Bill was just window dressing?
Well, look at the Illuminati cards. If we go by the Illuminati cards, the one on Bill Clinton and the one on Hillary Clinton, you find out Hillary is the true power behind both of them, and she has been all along.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's true. And the Illuminati cards, we've gotten in anticipation of your appearance tonight. Many people, a significant number of emails coming in saying, well, how can we believe, for example, or why should we believe in these Illuminati cards? Their origins and what have you. Are they accurate? And we look back and certainly they seem accurate, but is there enough there to prove some foreknowledge and planning and molding of the future events within the cards?
As I said before, I don't look at the words to determine anything. I want to see the actions. I can tell more about people and things and by the actions than anything else. Yeah. Well, when we've looked at the Illuminati cards, one of the major events we saw. Now, before I say anything else, for those of you who don't know, the Illuminati cards were printed between 1982 and 1995. It was 13 years worth of publishing, and it wasn't 13 years for no reason at all, ladies and gentlemen. There was 7 different sets of Illuminati cards printed. I think there was a little bit more than 800 total. When we look at certain events in the cards, there was no way any of what had happened could have been accidental, because the cards themselves were too detailed in these forthcoming events. As you all know, Doug and Joe, when we went over 9/11, well, we saw the Illuminati cards where the Pentagon was hit and where the Twin Towers came down. And mind you, when we look at the Twin Towers, where we saw that ball of fire and everything coming out on the Illuminati card, that was the exact same spot that happened when the Twin Towers were hit. I mean, that's the exact location. When we looked at the story, what was going on, and I've got, let me tell you, when those events were unfolding, I was putting in more VCR tapes and recording things than I could remember. I've still got those tapes to this very day. And we find out that, accordingly, the White House and the Capitol were supposed to be hit. Yep. And according to the Illuminati cards, the White House and the White House would remain unscathed. And that's exactly what happened. We also found out, if you look at those Illuminati cards, that the White House obviously would be surrounded by soldiers in a state of lockdown, and that's what happened in reality. And we also know that one of the people who would first be blamed for these events was Saddam Hussein.
Yes.
And in the Illuminati cards, you have your Saddam Hussein cards ready to attack us and everything.
Is that
that's
why?
Just one. Now, that's just one event.
No,
Let's remember the BP oil spill.
Yes.
Okay? That was in the cards. If we look at the events surrounding the disaster at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant, that's in the cards. And I mean in great detail now. We saw also, if you go by the Illuminati cards, the death of Princess Diana of Wales.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. So these cards and what they're foretelling us, they're too accurate. Now, if it looked like guesswork, I would happily agree with the person who says, hey, yeah, it looks like it was a guess. There's nothing to it other than that. But it's when we look at the details. Who was blamed, what was going to happen, where it was going to happen. No, that's just beyond the point of coincidence. I'm one of those people who says, once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, 3 times or more, something's going on here.
13 years in the making, or 13 years in production. Who authored these cards, or who produced them? Who's the name, the face behind these cards?
Well, supposedly it was Steve Jackson. And beyond that, because I had already been out of the order of the Illuminati. I don't know, but it looks to me, and it's happened so many times in the past, he was just a front man. That's all he was. Because among other things, I believe it was the FBI who one day raided his office, all the computers, everything was taken because they wanted to know how could this person know so much, and with that type of detailing.
And if I recall, I don't think anything became of that, except for a black hole. Everything went into a black hole, unless I'm mistaken. But
no, you're right. All of a sudden, everything just went to pot, and that was the end of it. I think what happened once the Illuminati found out what was going on, they put a very quick stop to it.
Well, why? Well, I guess the publication or the creation of these cards, in a way, they've got, by their rules, by Satan's rules, perhaps more specifically, they've got to let us know what they intend to do. And I guess no. They wanted to let their own people know their plans and to get ready for what was going to happen. Outsiders had actually thought those cards was just another playing game like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, or Pokemon, or things like that. That's what people thought they were because they didn't know the Illuminati, let alone what these cards were truly all about. Okay. That clears that up. And a lot of people, we talk about these things, but we really don't talk about them in depth or enough with an expert like yourself to really understand their origins and their purpose. And this is good. I mean, this brings a lot of the basics back out. And hey, we need to discuss this. All right. Well, okay. And you brought something up, and I can't resist hitting this because people will really say this is conspiracy nonsense. But the death of Princess Diana, foretold in the cards, but really an Illuminati signature behind that hit, the column in the 13th column, I think it was, in the tunnel.
Not just that. Let me share with you a piece of information another one of my contacts in England gave me. Because let's face it, as soon as this incident happened, there was a lot of reporters that swarmed there. But one of my contacts in particular, who was a reporter, he himself told me that he saw bullet holes in the vehicle itself.
Oh, my.
Yeah. That's exactly what he told me. He said he saw 3 of them.
All right. Well, okay.
Yeah. And let me tell you right now, it was never reported, and he had no reason to lie about it, really. There was nothing in it for him. There was nothing in it for him, especially since it wasn't allowed to be reported.
Right, and I can see just him getting eaten up by the media and by others. But what would be the motive to take Diana out? I mean,
that's the interesting part. Now let's face it. During that part of the middle of the 90s, Diana was becoming more than what the royal family could handle, let alone the Illuminati. She was becoming her own person, and she would have moved hell if she had to. And so she had to be dealt with because, among other things, she was dating Dodi Fayed, wasn't she?
Yep. Right on.
Dodi Fayed's father owns Lloyd's of London. The guy is a billionaire over many times. And they're from Arabic stock, aren't they?
Yes.
They would not allow Diana to take the throne. They would not allow Diana to get married to an Arab because, remember, the Illuminati are headed by the Rothschilds. They are Jewish by lineage. The Arabs are the natural enemies. And they were not going to risk her having a child. Now, she's of the royal bloodline, since she married into the firm.
Right.
They would not allow her, they would not allow the risk of her having a child from the enemy. she was becoming a problem. She had to be dealt with quickly.
Wow, fantastic, and which I do believe that's the case. Looking back, given the totality of the evidence and some of the raw evidence, interesting too about the bullet holes in the vehicle.
We are surprisingly only have 3 minutes left of the show.
Man,
I'm just sitting here listening.
Goodness, is it almost that time?
Yeah, you know what, Doc? I mean, we could sit here and talk for days. This is so fascinating. It's so important too to the research of many. Do
you have any upcoming speaking engagements or any other radio interviews in
the
near future?
Fact, I'm going to be speaking in Colorado Springs at the next Prophecy in the News Prophecy Summit. That's at Colorado Springs again this year. I'm really looking forward to meeting everyone there again. Plus, I'm going to be speaking in Leander, Texas, at a 3-day conference. That's the end of the month, the very end of July, and then I have, I think, 4 or 5 days, and I have to get over to Colorado Springs to do that. And there's another one I can't think of, but I'm also going to be in New Mexico in Waterflow. I love speaking to those people there. I'm there almost every year. Radio shows, my goodness, I did, I think, just 4 or 5 last week. I've already done 3 with you folks already this week. But as we get closer to where I'm going to be speaking again, at these conferences or Prophecy Summit, I always post them on my website. So everyone who's on, the mailing list will get all the information. It's called the mailing list, not because we mail you a daily newspaper or anything. No. That mailing list is there to inform you of all these upcoming events, the radio shows, new DVDs, and all the articles and such we post on the website. See, I don't bother anyone by sending them all these articles because I know people are inundated with more emails than I know what to do with. So instead, people, every day, just about every single day, we've got something new we're posting up in the categories on the website. You just go there if you're interested in religious news, world news, the regular news, the government, Second Amendment, things of that. You just open it up. There's the post. Go through them at your leisure. We've got, of course, radio shows. And, of course, my favorite radio show, I must have about 12 or 15 radio shows of the dynamic duo of the airwaves, Joe and Doc Hagmann.
Oh, man. You're too kind.
It's all up there, for anyone who wants to look at it. They can find it, as you've already said, at It's a God Thing Productions, 777.com. They can find me on Facebook, or they can email me to Doc Marquis 777 at yahoo.com. Or if they want to call me, just call me at 402-228-9476. And, well, we do what we can, folks, and we just let the good Lord take care of the rest.
Doc, that'll do it. We're up against the absolute close of the program. My friend, you've been fantastic. I just want to say thank you so much for your gift of time. We know it's sometimes it can be a burden, but you've outdone yourself again. God bless you, my friend. Until next time.
Thank you. You take care, and God keep you.
All right, brother.
God bless you, too. Till tomorrow, we'll be back with Steve Quayle as he brings on 2 other guests, and Friday, Nathan Leal. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
8 p.m.